So after a week in London, enjoying the scene, enjoying the social situation and the culture, I found a way to get into hopefully warmer climate. I found Bruce. He was a CPA and a lawyer from San Francisco, and he had a VW bus, a little van, and he had hooked up with a guy named Keith, big fella. He was from Vancouver, and the two of them were heading south towards Spain. And I found myself a way to get on that van with them, and we made it from London in the van, as you can see it, back to Dover, headed out to Calais in France. This was a relatively uneventful travel, this part of the journey, and I enjoyed myself, and the trip over was interesting, and it was kind of overnight by the time we got there. But it was great to come and go from Dover and to appreciate the incredible island effect of England as it sits off the coast of Europe. I came in from Belgium and left back from Spain. From France on my way to Spain. France is a very large country. We came from the north in Normandy. We went through Paris, and we traveled all the way down to the Pyrenees Mountains, which separate France from Spain. But as we were going through the lyrical times of the French countryside, eating baguettes and cheese and red wines and enjoying the climate and the people, we decided to stop off in Paris because what the heck, we were going by, and I had never been in Paris, and I don't think my fellow travelers had been there either. So we rolled the van in and we jumped onto a metro, Le Metro. That's the subway in Paris. And we took that into the city, leaving our van behind and becoming tourists again. It was pretty cool. I love Paris, and it was very beautiful. So behind me is the Notre, the famous church in Paris. We went there first because it was, in a sense, idyllic, as well as being emblematic of the great city of Paris. We went in and we fondled and we Googled and we oogled, and we found the wonders of this great church. Tragic to know that ultimately, about a year ago, we had a horrible fire, and they're trying to fix the great church right now as we speak. But Paris was great, and we really enjoyed it. The River Seine behind me is the center of Paris. Everything seems to revolve around it. And we got off the metro and walked about, and we walked along the Seine, and there were book stalls and all kinds of the wonderful things that we associate with Paris. It was a very short stay, but it was very flavorful, and I enjoyed it much, especially the Seine River. Take a look at the way the water kind of stays calmly, and the boats came with the glass boats, and we took a little trip on those. It was really great to spend some time in that wonderful city. The Louvre, the great French National Art Museum. Well, we had to go there. I seemed to be on some kind of an art tour after the Rijksmuseum and the British Museum and the modern art museums. But this Louvre, what a fantastic building. The art was phenomenal. We walked about for a couple hours, kind of staggering by the immensity of the museum, as well as the famous things in it. The Mona Lisa is there, and I saw it. And then I saw Venus de Milo, the great sculpture, and eventually Liberty Leading the Troops, the famous painting during the French Revolution, which dealt with the idea that liberty was the force behind our revolutions, US and France. But I really enjoyed the Louvre, but ultimately our driver Bruce said, "Come on guys, we gotta get going. We're just stopping over." And he grabbed a hold of us. We got back on the metro and made our way back to the van and started heading south towards the Pyrenees and Spain, where I was hoping I was going to find a nice warm climate so I could sleep out and cause my money to go further. France was a mostly flat country. We stopped at various places, famous and some not so famous, and enjoyed our way through. We was rolling along, still drinking wine, and eating the French baguettes and the wonderful cheeses, and enjoying the French countryside and the small towns. Eventually, we get to the rugged Pyrenees, the mountains that separate France from Spain, mostly brown, jaggedy. And as we were traveling through, in the middle of the Pyrenees, we found another country to stay in, Andorra. Andorra the city, Andorra the country. It shares money systems with France and Spain, has its own money. People come there, they gamble, all kinds of things going on there, right in the middle of the Pyrenees. I couldn't quite figure it out, but it was kind of an interesting place. And we spent the night sitting by the side of the road in our van. We were just three guys, two Americans and a Canadian, trying to get down to Spain for whatever reason. And there we were in Andorra, enjoying the sights and the sounds. Leaving Andorra and continuing to travel through the Pyrenees mountains, the rugged brown mountains, jig-jagging, zigzagging. Actually, the views and the wrenching elements of the zigzag turns were getting to all of us, but we did make it through. And somehow we got out of the Pyrenees and we headed down to the Mediterranean Sea, the seaport Barcelona, the great city that you see behind me. I staggered about and we moved into a youth hostel. Me and Keith actually stayed together, and Bruce went on his own merry way. And there we stayed and hung out for quite a while, and then went off to see the city, the wonderful city of Barcelona. Barcelona was an exciting city though. It had action. The people were moving about, and of course we got to get into the Spanish culture, which is a siesta culture. And then they get up after their siesta, have their evening meal, and stay up seemingly all hours. Well, I was on the Ramblas, the famous street where all the people walk. That's, I think, what you see behind me. And I was hanging out and having a good time, and in with the student culture, the hippie culture, as well as visiting and interfacing with the Spanish culture. And unfortunately, I got involved with some guys. And these guys said, oh, well, we'll get you back to the youth hostel. Again, it's got a curfew. And a fella had a small motor scooter of sorts, and he said, oh, I'll drive you guys back, because I was with a couple other people from the hostel. We clutched straws, picked straws, and I lost. I wound up being the third guy to go back, and I kept watching. I had a watch on, and I go, oh my God, this guy's not gonna make it back. Guess what? Clock hits 11 and I'm stuck. I'm on the streets again, replicating my night on the streets in Amsterdam. Now I'm doing it in Barcelona, a place where hardly anybody speaks English, but I'm cool. And I didn't have anything to sleep with, and my bag was back at the youth hostel. So I walked about and I met a fellow, and I met a German fellow, and I went into a show where I saw people performing, all kinds of like strip teases and weird cultural things. And I thought only in Spain, but it got later and later, and finally things are closing down. And my German fellow that I met, he had to go off because he was going in the Merchant Marine the next day. I'm out alone in Barcelona, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. I go down by the sea. I see ruined things and things in dishevelment, but I still was enjoying myself. Early in the morning, I found a market that opened up, kind of like an Eastern market that we have here in Detroit, but it was a great merchant market of wholesalers and fruits and vegetables mainly. And I gawked around there and grabbed an apple and walked around and enjoyed my way. And then finally, I get back to the youth hostel at 7 o'clock when it opens, and find out, to my horror, that my friends had given my sleeping bag to the fellow on the motor scooter to bring back to me so I could sleep with it. on the streets or someplace in Barcelona. Guess what? Never found that bag again. Now I'm in Spain trying to be a vagabond traveler and finding out that I don't even have a sleeping bag to make my way through this world. Sad but true. I find Barcelona a fascinating city. It's got the famous art of the great architect Antonio Gaudi, some of it behind me. It's got Picasso Museum. It's got really an amazing culture, and I'm enjoying it. But I got to figure out, where am I going next? The word is out. Guess what? There are boats leaving for the islands, for Ibiza in the Balearic Islands, out in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea from Barcelona. And I find myself a ticket, and I have to wait and bide my time to that evening because the boat is leaving about 10 p.m. Find some people down near the docks, hanging out all day long, going around and enjoying Barcelona, but getting ready to find warmer and nicer places to hang out and perhaps to sleep out, even though I don't have my sleeping bag anymore. Finally, at about 10 p.m., we make our way onto the great Spanish steamers, one of the great boats that is going to take us out to the islands. And I'm kind of gathering myself with some people. First of all, Keith, somehow or another, he's going there too. I didn't really like Keith, but he was kind of a big lump of a guy. But okay, he's going. I can't stop him. I say I'm going. He says he's going. Kind of a follower type. Then I meet a couple other people and another, and we kind of gain some solidity in terms of being buddies on the boats. A couple of Swiss German guys. And then I meet another American guy. So there's like 5 of us. And we make it an overnight journey to the island of Ibiza. The blue waters of the Mediterranean Sea were outstanding. And we traveled across in the Spanish steamer, and we start to get close, and all of a sudden, cropping out of the blue waters is the majesty of the island of Ibiza, white against the blue sky, the blue sea, and the brown mountains. And we loved it. And we came up to it and really felt like, wow, this is really something else. But as we got off the boat, we started to see that it was kind of touristy. And I didn't really expect that. I thought it was going to be a little more laid back. So I started to think, no, man, this is not for me. I don't know where to go, but I got to find some place. And as I mentioned earlier, we had this little group of the 5 of us that kind of gathered together, travelers, 2 Swiss German guys, Dan from Connecticut, and of course, Keith from British Columbia, Vancouver. And we go, this place isn't really for us. Let's find some place that's more laid back so we can kind of hang out on the beaches and stuff and not worry about this tourist scene. So we find a boat that will take us to another island called Formentera. This is an island that you could only get to from Ibiza. I thought, wow, man, I didn't even know Formentera existed. Okay, let's try it out. So the 5 of us find the small boat and pay very little to get on this next little island, which is very close. And we jump on board and we make it across the blue water on our way to an island called Formentera. I make my way back to the hostel so I can pick up my gear. When I get to the bunk in my room, I discover my sleeping bag is gone. One of the guys tells me that my sleeping bag was given to a guy on a scooter to give to me last night, just as they locked the doors for the night. Well, I never hung around at the restaurant where we were, nor did I see the scooter guy again. Now I've lost my sleeping bag and will need to get another one. Damn it. The extra cost on my very limited budget is upsetting to me. I depart the hostel with my backpack and walk to the docks. My boat doesn't leave till tonight, so I decide to take a long nap in a nearby park. I can't sleep right away even though I'm very tired. My mind is abuzz in thought. I think Morocco is my answer for the start of the winter months,
but the many road stories I've been hearing about needing to cut my hair to get into the country is really messing with my head. My proud hippiedom status is rooted in my hair. These road stories among travelers might just be legend and lore. The other day a guy insisted, Moroccan authorities will not admit long hairs into the country. It's a heavy trip owning my hair, red curls springing out in all directions. I finally drift off to sleep, sitting down, leaning against the base of a tree.